Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the webinar today. Today, we'll be discussing the GraphPad Prism integration with FCS Express. I'm Katherine Rittenbach. I'm a technical application scientist with de novo Software, the maker of FCS Express flow and image cytometry data analysis software. Today, if you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to enter those in the Q&A section or the chat. I have my colleague Greg on the line as well, and he can help with answering questions. I'll try to keep an eye on those windows and answer your questions as they come in. So let's take a look at our agenda for today. First, I'm going to be reviewing how to assign keywords to your data files that can be used in the Prism integration. Next, I will demonstrate how we can export a new Prism project to a Prism XY table, a Prism column table, or a Prism grouped table. I'll then demonstrate how we can combine a Prism table with an existing Prism project. And then lastly, I'll demonstrate how we can export your Prism project simultaneously with a PowerPoint or a PDF that you might want to export at the same time. Please note that the Prism integration is only available in version 7.20.0020 and higher. So anyone with a active FCS Express 7 subscription would be able to use this feature. You might just need to download the latest release of FCS Express. And if you do need to download that latest release, you can go to our website, denovosoftware.com, click on that downloads button, and then that will allow you to download the latest release. If you're new to FCS Express, welcome. If you've never used it before and you want to give it a try, we have a 30-day free trial available on our website. So again, denovosoftware.com, and you can click that free trial button to be able to use the fully unlocked, fully functional version of FCS Express for 30 days and give this Prism integration a try. If you want to learn more about our Prism integration today and reference some information that we covered in the webinar, you can view our dedicated website. So it's denovosoftware.com/graphpad-prism-integration. If any questions come up in the future that you want to ask us, please feel free to send an email to our support team, support@denovosoftware.com, and we usually get back to you within one business day. We do have 3 webinars going on this week. One was recorded yesterday, and that was getting started in FCS Express 7 Flow. And tomorrow we'll be having getting started with FCS Express 7 image cytometry. So both are being recorded and will be posted about a week after the webinar date. So you'll be able to find those on our website, in our video section, and on our YouTube channel. This webinar today is also being recorded, and you'll be sent a link about a week after today. So let's get started with the webinar. So I'm going to start with a layout that's already been created. You can see it's kind of simple. We have some plots, we have some gates already made. And we'll begin with the process of wanting to export our Prism tables to a Prism project. So what you'll notice on the data list here are some extra columns that you might not have seen before. You can see these extra keywords listed on these columns. So we have compound keyword, sample ID keyword, M and F keyword, and dose keyword. Now you might be wondering, how did I get these keywords to be listed here? Once the keywords are accessible by FCS Express, which I'm going to go over in a moment, we'll be able to go to the wrench icon here to format. And you're going to be able to click this Add button and select any keywords that you want to list in the data list in these columns. So you'll be able to press Add, and you'll see the full list of keywords that are available for these data files. So a lot of these come right from your instrument. They're written right into your FCS files. However, what we've done with this data is actually add something that we call extra keywords, and I'll go over how we actually wrote those in. You'll see here, these are some custom extra keywords, compound, dose, for example. So how did we get those to get recognized by FCS Express? Well, in our data folder, along with all of our FCS files, we've added this file called extrakeywordstable.csv. So this is a CSV file that can be opened in Excel. It can be created in Excel. So I'll double click on this and show you what this looks like. So what we need to do to create this extra keywords file is first have a column called file name. In that file name column, you're going to enter each of your FCS file names, including the .fcs file extension. So you can see that we've done that for all 96 data files in this data set. Then you are free to add as many columns as you want to that Excel document, that CSV file. The top row is going to be your column header, and that will actually be the name of the keyword that you're assigning. So we can wrap this text to see the full name here. So you'll notice that we added a column or a keyword called well ID to assign the well ID for each of these data files. And then we've also indicated the number of rows that were in the plate and the number of columns that were in the plate that was sampled. And this can be useful. This is not necessary in all cases. This can be useful if you'd like to be viewing your plate-based data on a plate heat map. We've also added a male or female category or keyword here. We've added a keyword for dose, a keyword for experimental group, a keyword for compound, and a keyword for sample ID. So in the first row, again, this is going to be the name of the keyword. Then for each of our data files, each of our FCS files, we've assigned a unique value. So you can see A1, A2, A3, A4, etc. Unique values for our well ID keyword. And then we've assigned if each of these data files belongs to the male or female category, and also have assigned a dose, 0, 1, 10, or 100 for each of our files. We've assigned if the data file is part of a control group or part of a treated group. We've also assigned if the FCS file was part of a placebo group, if that particular patient was administered drug 1 or drug 2. And then finally, we have assigned a sample ID. So these exact keywords are not necessary. What you would want to do is create keywords that are meaningful in your experiment. The whole reason that we are assigning these keywords is that we want to be able to group our FCS files into groups. This will help us to organize those statistics from each of those FCS files into our Prism tables. The Prism tables are going to be organizing the statistic from each of these data files according to the groups. There is a question that just came in. Can we populate the file name column automatically, or do we have to input them manually? That is a perfect segue. I can show you a page on our website. We have created a template that can allow you to create that file automatically. So if you Google FCS Express and extra keywords, one of the hits will be this knowledge base article. So this knowledge base article is on our website in our knowledge base. It's called How Can I Easily Create the File Name Column in the Extra Keywords Table.csv file. And you'll be able to download the template that we've created. And that template will give you some step-by-step instructions to pretty easily and quickly populate that file name column. And then you would be able to add on your extra keywords as needed. So that was an awesome, awesome question. Once you are all done with creating your extra columns here and you're ready to save this file, go to the File tab and click Save As. You're going to need to save it as a .csv file. So this is called CSV, delimited. And the file name must be extra keywords table, exactly like this. And we're going to have to save this inside the same folder as the data files. So wherever your data files are saved and wherever they are getting pulled from into FCS Express, you'll want to put that CSV file in that same folder so FCS Express can actually go and find those keywords. Once it's saved, as soon as you load in the data file onto an object in FCS Express, those extra keywords are going to automatically be pulled along with the data file into FCS Express. If you've already loaded that particular data file into the data list and into your layout, but you did that before you created your extra keywords file, you might just need to reload your data files. So our reload button is under the data tab and reload here. So you can click that button and check mark the current checkbox. If you'd like to reload all of the data files in your data list, I would recommend closing your layout, saving it, closing it, and reopening it so that FCS Express can actually reload all of the data files in the data list. All right, there's another question that came in. Some instruments like SciTech Aurora allow you to add keywords to the FCS file while recording data. Can the software use the pre-populated keywords? Absolutely. That's another great question. So when you go to this wrench icon in the data list and you click add, all of those keywords that were written by the instrument will be accessible here. So yes, that could be an option. If your instrument software allows you to enter keywords directly in the instrument software, and those will get actually exported with your FCS file, then that would be another alternative place for you to enter those keywords and assign those keywords. Okay, so we have our keywords assigned and we're showing them in our data list to help us keep track of which groups each of these FCS files is a part of. Then we're ready to get started with exporting to a Prism project. So we'll have this batch, we'll want to go to this batch actions window. Now in my layout, it's already open on the lower left of the screen, but if you don't have it open already, you'll go to the Batch and Export tab and choose Actions and Reports. And this is a dockable window, meaning that you can undock it from the side or redock it anywhere around your layout. So when we're ready to create our Prism project, we'll click under the Add Folder section. We're going to click Prism Project. And then here we are just asked to tell FCS Express where to save this Prism project. So for this first example, I'm actually going to start with an empty file, but note that a little bit later, I'll show you how we can combine the output with an existing Prism file. And we're saving to a new file down here. We need to tell FCS Express which folder to put the Prism project in. By default, it's going to pick the same folder as where your layout is saved. I am going to give this a different name. I'll just call this layout 2. And if you want to completely change the location of where this is getting saved, you can click this yellow file folder icon, and this will open up your File Explorer or your Finder window, and you'll be able to navigate to where you want this to be saved, and you'll be able to enter a unique file name for that Prism project. If you want to use a token in your name for your Prism project, you absolutely can do that, but you'll click this T button to insert a token. Now, in FCS Express, if you're not familiar with tokens, a token is just a bit of information that's being sourced from your layout, from your data file, from your plots, from your gates, or from your computer. So that could be useful if you want to give a unique name for your Prism project. You'll be able to tell FCS Express if you want to have a confirmation before overwriting the existing file. I find that that's very helpful so we don't overwrite a file that we want to save. And then we also have these project options. So these, if you're familiar with Prism, you might be familiar with these different entries. So you are free to enter a project title, experiment ID, and all of this extra information if you'd like. And this will show up in your Prism table. Or you can leave it blank if you don't need to enter any information about this. All right, so then we can press OK. And we have our Prism project listed here in our batch actions. Next, we need to pick which type of table we want to export to Prism. We have the Prism XY table, column table, and grouped table. Now, I'd like to just show you what the difference is between those. So I've already gone through the process of exporting each of those into this Prism project from FCS Express so that we can kind of explore what this is going to look like after we do the export. So if we look at our first data table that got exported, this is the XY table. So how is this arranged? Well, we're seeing on the left column all of our FCS files that are part of this group. So we're listing that FCS file name for multiple data files that are in the same group. Then in this X column, it's using the dose keyword. If you remember over here, we have assigned that as an extra keyword, and FCS Express has access to that dose keyword. So all of these data files have a keyword value of 0. And then in these other columns, we have three other column sets here, Group A, Group B, and Group C. And these are being categorized and grouped according to our compound keyword. So you can see our compound keyword here. Some were assigned a value of placebo, some were assigned a value of drug 1, and some were assigned a value of drug 2. So the data files that have a dose of 0 and were in the placebo group, the statistics are getting exported over here and arranged over here. Then the data files that were assigned a value of drug 1 for our compound keyword have the statistics exported in this region over here, and they are separated according to dose as well. So we can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's 8 different files. Okay, we have 8 different replicates here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 different replicates. that have a dose of 0 and are part of this group A with a value of drug 1. Right, so we can see those individual statistics that were exported for all 8 of those FCS files. And if you're curious about which FCS files each of these statistics is coming from, you'll be able to expand that first column and see which exact FCS files those statistics are coming from. Right, so this is how the XY table is getting arranged and organized. Then let's take a look at the column type table. So this is organized a little bit differently. In the first column here, we only have one FCS file listed per row, and the only keyword that these are being grouped according to is compound. So we have one column for compound, the drug 1 compound, another column for the drug 2 compound, and a third column for the placebo compound. And you can clearly see that these FCS files are part of the placebo group, then these FCS files are part of the drug 1 group, and these FCS files are part of the drug 2 group. And each of those values is the statistic that's associated with that particular FCS file. So the column table is a little bit more simple and it's only defined by that one keyword, whereas the XY table was assigned according or arranged according to two keywords, the dose and the compound. Then let's take a look at this third type of table. This is a grouped table, and this is yet again arranged a little bit differently. So in the first column here, we have one row per dose value according to our dose keyword. Some of the FCS files were assigned a value of 0, some assigned a value of 1, 10, and 100. So all of the statistics from the FCS files inside of that group with a dose of 0 are going to appear in that first row. And then those statistics are further broken down or grouped according to the compound. So we have one set of columns assigned to group drug 1, one set of columns assigned to the group drug 2, and one set of columns assigned to the group placebo. All right, so this is what we're going to be generating with our 3 different types of prism tables. So just to review that again, this is what the XY table looks like, this is what the column table looks like, and this is what the grouped table looks like. So let's try to generate that in FCS Express. So we have our Prism project. We'll click on that and choose which type of table we want to create. Let's start with the Prism XY table. So we'll click on that, and then we have to enter our keywords that we want to use. So in the first part here, FCS Express is asking for one numerical keyword to derive the x-axis values from. So in this case, we will choose dose. So if you want to go and search for the keywords that are available, you can click this ellipsis and scroll down to your extra keywords are usually going to be around the bottom of the list. So we'll pick dose here and click OK. Or you can manually enter it in this format if you already know what it is called. Next, FCS Express wants to know which keyword to derive the row titles from. So by default, it's going to pick the file name keyword, $FIL. And this is a standard keyword that's in most FCS files. And this is what was chosen in order to get our file names listed here in this column. So we'll keep that as the default. And then FCS Express wants us to define the Y column titles. So we're going to pick the compound keyword here. So I'll go to the ellipsis and pick our compound keyword. And finally, we need to enter the number of replicates. So as we saw here in our Prism table, we have 8 data files that are part of the same group. So we have 8 data files, like in this first row, we have 8 data files that have a dose of 0 and are part of, and the patients were administered a placebo. So we're going to enter a value of 8 for the number of replicates. And that's the number of subcolumns we have in each of these groups. And then we can press OK. And our Prism XY table has been added to our Prism project. If we were to run these batch actions, we would end up with an empty Prism project because we have not assigned any statistics to export. With the Prism integration, we will need to pick one statistic per table. And the way that we can assign a statistic is by dragging and dropping an object from our layout onto that Prism table, or we can choose to add an item to the report down here by adding a statistic token or a keyword token. One shortcut here would be to drag and drop a gate, for example, onto the Prism XY table. So let's say we want to export this percentage, 16.23. We want the percentage out of all the events on this plot that are falling inside of gate 5, this orange gate. So we can click and drag that gate out of the plot and onto our Prism XY table. And this is the same for if we were used to exporting to Excel column mode or Excel cell mode. This is the same kind of procedure. So we've dragged that gate 5 onto the Prism table, and so gate 5 is selected under our gate list here, and then we are free to pick which one statistic we want to export to our Prism table. I'm going to select percent of gated cells from plot to get that orange percentage here. So I'll press OK, and now our statistic is listed here. If we are ready to export to Prism and we don't want to add any other tables to this Prism project at this time, we are ready to press Run. We want to make sure that our first iteration in the data list is currently selected or highlighted in cyan, and we can navigate from iteration to iteration by selecting the blue iteration number in the data list. We'll want to make sure the first one is selected and is the current iteration, because FCS Express is going to start with the current iteration and then go down the list file by file to the very bottom of the list and stop. So once we are ready to go, under the Batch and Export tab, we can click Run. If you're using iteration snapshots, you would want to click Rerun. But if you're not using iteration snapshots, it's fine to click Run. So you might see this warning message. If you're not using iteration snapshots, it's fine to continue. But if you are using iteration snapshots, you would want to click No and instead use the Rerun button. If you don't know what iteration snapshots are, it's a way to set unique gate, marker, and quadrant positions on a file-by-file basis or on an iteration-by-iteration basis. So we have a video on our YouTube channel and on our videos page explaining how that works if you're interested in learning about it. If you don't know what it is and you've never used it before, you don't need to worry about this, and you can click yes and continue running. So I'll click yes. I'm not using any iteration snapshots here. So you'll see that the cyan highlighting was going down file by file. We're processing this Prism project and processing that one action. So we're going file by file. You're able to see those data files playing through the plots, and this statistic is getting exported for each of our iterations. All right, so now I'm going to just go find my Prism project file that I exported. So I exported it to this folder, and I'll just double click on that to open the Prism project. You do need to have a Prism license already if you'd like to open the Prism file that you've exported, but you don't need a Prism license in order to do the export process from FCS Express. So we'll see here that our one data table was exported. It's the XY table, and this looks exactly as we would expect. So according to those two keywords, dose and compound, FCS Express has exported our single statistic, the gate 5 percentage, and organized that value according to the groups. After exporting your table or tables, you are free to go in and create some graphs. So you can click New Graph here to make a graph based on the information in this table and customize that however you'd like. I can show you a couple of examples of some graphs that were already created. So for our first table type, these are some examples of how we might want to graph the information. Then for our column type table, we might want to make a graph that looks kind of like this, showing the different compounds on the x-axis, graphing the individual values in each section here, and then showing the median for each of those groups. And for our third type of table, the grouped table, we might want to show a graph like this, where we have the dose on the x-axis, and then we further divide that up according to our compound group, always showing the gate 5 percentage statistic on the y-axis. All right, so we have exported our XY table, and I'll show you next how we can export a different type of table. So let's say we want to export a column table. We'll click the Prism column table, and we can actually add it to the same Prism project. So we can add as many tables as we want to this same Prism project. And they can each be plotting or pulling a different statistic from FCS Express. In this column table, if you remember from before, this one is a little bit simpler. We have our FCS file listed one per row in this first column, and then we are dividing up those values into 3 other columns, one per compound type. So we only need to indicate one of our keywords, which is compound, and this is how we want those columns to get divided up. So by default, the keyword to derive the row titles from, that's this, is going to be the file name keyword, $FIL. That's the default, and that's fine. I'm going to leave that as the default. Then we need to define our column titles. So our column titles are going to be I would like them to be drug 1, drug 2, and placebo in this case, so I'm going to assign the compound keyword as our column title. So we can click the ellipsis to go and find that compound keyword and click OK. And then I'll click OK again. So now our Prism column table is set up, but we do need to assign a statistic. So maybe in this column table, we want to assign a different statistic. Maybe we want this gate 3 percentage instead. So we can click and drag the gate 3 from the plot onto the Prism column table and select percent of gated cells. Of course, you're free to pick any statistic that's listed here. And I'll click OK. And now that's set up. And while we're at it, let's set up a third type of table. So we'll click Prism Project at the top and add a report. So we'll add a Prism grouped table for the third type of table. Now let's just take another look at how this was organized. So this is our grouped table. We have each dose listed in a row, and then those statistics are further divided by compound. So we're going to indicate the keywords dose and compound. So we'll derive our row titles from dose. And we'll derive our columns from compound. And here we also need to indicate the number of replicates. So within these groups, we have 8 data files that share the same dose value and share the same compound value. So I'm going to indicate a value of 8 here. And again, on this grouped table, this is where that number of replicates is going to be coming in. We're going to have that number of columns under each of our groups, Group A, Group B, Group C. And we can press OK. On each of our tables here, the XY table, the column table, and the grouped table, you are going to be able to see a small preview of what that type of table will look like in Prism. But I hope that what I've shown you also with this pre-made example clarifies where these keywords are going to be exported. And I'll press OK. And we do need to assign another statistic here. So perhaps we want some information about gate 2. I'll click and drag gate 2 onto this Prism grouped table. And again, I would like to export information about the percentage of gated cells. All right, so this is all set up. And I'm going to rename my Prism project. You can always revisit the Prism project options by double-clicking on the Prism project itself. And I'm going to just assign a different name here so I don't overwrite my previous Prism project. So I'll call this now Layout 3 and click OK. And I'd like to run this once more. So we'll press our Run button at the top. And now it is going to export all 3 of these tables to the same Prism project file. All right, so that is all done. Let's pull up the exported Prism project. This is layout 3. And we can see that we have all 3 tables listed here under data tables. So we have our XY table, we have our column table, and we have our grouped table. All right. And if you are interested in what the statistic is, the statistic is going to be listed as the name of the data table. So you can see here in gate 1 and gate 5, the percent of gated cells from the plot. So the statistic name is percent of gated cells from the plot, and the gate of interest would be gate 5, gate 3, or gate 2, as we have assigned. Great. So let's go back to our agenda and see what we'll look at next. So we've gone through assigning the keywords, and we've gone through exporting a new Prism project with the XY table, the column table, and the grouped table. Next, let's go through combining the new tables with an existing Prism project. So we can use our same layout that we've been working with, and we maybe want to add another table onto our existing Prism project that we have just exported. So we have just exported layout 3, and maybe we want to export additional tables there. So we can create a new Prism project. And this time, instead of starting with an empty file, we'll combine the output with the data from an existing file. I'll make sure I have my Prism files closed. All right. And we're going to pick that Prism project. So I'm going to go find where that saved Prism project is. And we can click open. And then we have the option to append to this same file if we want it to have the same file name, or we can save it to a new file name and give it a different name. So I'm going to do that in this case. I will call this layout 4. And again, you have the option to enter some more information that will appear in Prism. So we have our new Prism project here. And let's say I want to just add on a column table. So I'll click on that Prism project and click on Prism column table. I'll keep this file name keyword as the default, and we can enter a keyword here. So I will choose dose and click OK. And assign a value here. Maybe we want to know the number of events inside of gate 1. So I will click and drag gate 1 onto that Prism column table and pick the number of events and click OK. And then we're ready to run. So with this batch actions window, these check marks are going to tell FCS Express which actions to actually process and export when you click run. So since we already did this one before, I don't want to run it again. I only want to run this Prism project. So I will have that one check marked. And then this should be adding on an additional table to our existing Prism project. So I'm going to click run. And in the meantime, If you are curious about where that project info would get shown in the Prism project, it would be on the left pane here under Info and Project Info. You'll be able to see the experiment date, experiment ID, and any notes that you had entered in FCS Express. All right, so this is all done, and let's go find our new Prism project. So here it is. It's called Layout 4. This is Layout 3, but we've added on an additional table. So let's check that out. This is what it looks like in Prism. We have our original 3 tables, and then we've added on our new table here. It's our column table, and categorizing these statistics according to dose. And it's calling this in gate 1 the number of events. Right. So there's one other item I'd like to go over today, and that is exporting the Prism project simultaneously with a PowerPoint or with a PDF so that you can make your whole exporting process pretty efficient with FCS Express. So let's set up a example PDF export and PowerPoint export. So what this is going to do is go iteration by iteration, and we're going to want to export one PowerPoint slide per iteration. It's going to look just like our layout here, but just play the different data files through the plots. Same with the PDF. We're going to want to export one page of the PDF per iteration in our data list. So we're going to be ending up with 96. If we let the PowerPoint and the PDF export completely, we'll be ending up with 96 PowerPoint slides and 96 pages in our PDF file. So the way that we would set that up is click Save to PowerPoint. You can continue adding on as many batch actions as you want to this batch actions window. And when we set up the PowerPoint, we might want it to open automatically after saving. And we are going to want to combine the output from all of our iterations into the same presentation. That means we're going to have all 96 slides inside the same PowerPoint file. If instead you want one PowerPoint slide per PowerPoint file and separate this all out into 96 different PowerPoint files, you have that option here. But I'm going to select the second option. And we'll start with an empty file, although you do have the option to append or add on to an existing PowerPoint presentation. And then we can give it a name. So by default, again, it's going to save to the same folder as my layout file. And I'm just going to call this PowerPoint 1 and click OK. So now our PowerPoint is all set up. And let's set up our PDF in the similar way. So we'll click Save to PDF. And we want to combine the output from all iterations into a single file. We want 96 pages in the same the same PDF file. We don't want to export 96 different individual PDF files. That would be this option. And we'll start with an empty file. And then we can give this a unique name. So I'll just call this PDF1. And we can have that open automatically after saving. All right, so I'll click OK. And I'm going to double click on this Prism project. I'm going to call this something different so that a new Prism project will be created while we are doing this export. So I'll call this layout 5, but it's going to look the same as our previous export. It's going to essentially be adding on an extra Prism column table to an existing Prism project. All right, so we have all of these check marked, we have 3 batch actions, one Prism project, one export to PowerPoint, and one export to PDF. Now, the export to PDF and export to PowerPoint, we don't need to drag and drop anything from our layout onto these actions because these are just going to be exporting our layout exactly as it looks. We don't need to assign any statistics. So let's make sure we are on the first iteration and we'll press run. So now you'll notice there's a current action status here, exporting to PDF, exporting to PowerPoint, and it's also exporting to Prism. And this is repeating over and over again, 3 actions executing. And you can have that status here, 18, 19 out of 96 iterations completed. So you'll notice it's a little bit slower now because we've added some more batch actions for FCS Express to process. If you do end up canceling while the process is going, you'll be able to preserve what has already been exported. So let's take a look at how that would work. If we click cancel, do you want to save the data that's already been processed? We can click yes. And we can see up to the last iteration that was processed, what this is going to look like. So we have our PDF file here. We have 1 page per data file. So if we go down page by page, you'll see the plots are exactly the same from page to page. The gates are in the same positions because we didn't set any unique gate positions on a file by file basis for this layout. And we are changing from data file to data file. And this is what our PowerPoint looks like. We've also exported exactly what our layout looks like, and we have 1 slide per iteration or 1 slide per data file. So this got exported, and each of these objects on our layout can be moved around and resized and individually manipulated. And in addition to the PowerPoint and the PDF, we've also exported our Prism project. So we now have layout 5, and we've only processed some of the iterations, but this is again available for us. So we have our original 3 tables and then the additional table that got added during that batch process. All right, so that is everything that I wanted to go over today. Let me just one more time check the chat and the Q&A. It doesn't look like that there are any questions there. So thank you everyone for attending today. Again, this has been recorded and will be sent to you in about a week. The recording will also be posted in our videos page on our website and on our YouTube channel. So again, if you are new to FCS Express, but maybe have been using Prism for a while and you want to try out FCS Express for your flow cytometry and image cytometry analysis, you are free to click that free trial button on our website, denovosoftware.com, to try it out free for 30 days. If you'd like to reference the information we covered today, you'll be able to visit denovosoftware.com/graphpad-prism-integration. You can check out our other webinars that we are having this week. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to email our support team. We're always happy to help. So you can send an email to this email address. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of the week.